With Maeve's son, well, my son, finally born, a strange, overwhelming urge gripped me. I needed to know who my mother was. Theories were everywhere. Fan forums, conspiracy boards, whispers in the dark corners of the internet. I had my suspicions. Most of them pointed to her. And if those theories were right, well, I wouldn't be shocked. Disgusted, maybe, but not shocked. Stormfront. Yeah, that would be poetic in the most messed up Greek tragedy kind of way. The kind of irony the gods themselves would laugh at, like Zeus screwing his own sister. Homelander did see himself as a god, after all, but I wasn't looking for poetry. I needed truth. No digital records. No paper trail. Nothing. So here I was, walking into Martin's office, the last avenue left. "Martin," I called out, louder than I meant to. He flinched. He was hunched over his computer, probably buried in reports on 24V and a dozen other nightmares Vought cooked up. With the way he burned through the R&D budget, you'd think he was trying to end the world faster. "John," he said, blinking. "How are you this morning?" "Cut the pleasantries," I said, stepping forward. "I've got one question." His interest peaked immediately. "Who is my mother?" I saw the change in him instantly. A blink. Then a deep sadness overtook his features, and he sank into his chair like someone had deflated him from the inside out. I watched the sweat bead along his temple. His body temperature spiked too fast. "Martin," I asked more forcefully. He took a breath. "Are you sure you want to know? You're not going to like it." "Bingo." "Fuck," I shouted. Only half of it was acting. I knew it. I started pacing, throwing up my hands. Of course it's her. Who else would it be? That fucking Nazi bitch. Oh God, the things we did. I had to sell it. New Homelander had to look shocked, disgusted, remorseful. A perfect performance. Martin just stared, bewildered. "It's Stormfront, isn't it?" I pressed. "What?" He blinked again. "My mother. It's Stormfront. Right? What?" "No." His confusion was genuine. "Why would you think that?" I blinked. Now I was the confused one. Flight and energy manipulation. I raised one hand. Soldier Boy's strength and invulnerability. Raised the other. Put M together. I clapped my hands. "You get me." Martin rubbed his temple. "Okay, sure, that makes sense, but it's not her." "Then who is it?" I demanded. "Tell me." Martin hesitated. "It might be better if you let this one stay buried." That did it. Now I was truly curious. He was making it sound worse than Stormfront. Worse than some crackhead donor. Worse than... "Martin," I said, stepping closer, voice low. "Tell me. Now." He swallowed hard. "Your surrogate mother was Maria Avero. She carried you to term. Died during childbirth. So not my biological mother, then?" "No. They used someone else's egg, combined with Soldier Boy's DNA." I nodded. "Go on." He looked like he was trying to decide whether to run or confess. "It was... Catherine." A pause. "Catherine Vogelbaum." My world stopped. The name echoed in my head like a cursed bell tolling in slow motion. Vogelbaum. Everything in me knotted up. My chest, my breath, my stomach. A surge of energy pulsed outward like a sonic boom radiating from my gut. "That fucking Nazi bastard." I roared. I felt my fists clench involuntarily, something soft cracking inside them. Wood from Martin's desk. "I'll kill him. I'll dig up his corpse and piss on it." Red. Everything turned red. I trusted him, looked up to him. I just wanted his love. I couldn't breathe. I was glowing, no, burning from the inside out. "John." I barely heard it through the rage. "John." I tried to suck in air. "John." The room snapped back into focus. The desk in front of me was crushed. My hands were embedded in what was left of it, wood compressed into splinters. Martin was by the door, pale, terrified. "You're glowing. Please calm down, or you'll blow us all up." I inhaled sharply. "Focus. Compress the energy. Hold it in." "I'm not going to explode, Martin," I said through gritted teeth. "Now tell me what happened." He returned cautiously, dismissing the crowd of onlookers outside. "Catherine and her husband were trying to conceive. Jonah helped them. He used IVF. Harvested her eggs. I don't know why he used her for you. But she never knew. Jonah never told her. Didn't want her to find out." He paused again, eyes on me. "When you were about 7, Jonah erased all records. Threatened anyone who knew. 7 years old. That was when Homelander started accidentally killing his caretakers. A desperate child trying to get Jonah's attention, trying to feel seen, trying to be loved. Martin's voice was quiet. I'm sorry. I told you. We should have let this stay buried. He meant it. There was sorrow in his voice, but also pity. I need to go, I said after a long silence. I really did. Homelander's emotions weren't just mine. They were me. His memories, his pain, his insecurities. They lived in my blood now. All that Vought had done to him. All that Jonah had done. Jonah Vogelbaum, the architect of Homelander, and the man who had denied him the one thing he ever wanted. A family. Catherine Vogelbaum, Jonah's younger sister, which made me his nephew, flesh and blood. But to Jonah, I had never been a son, never been a child, just a product. Cameron looked up just as the conference room doors slammed open, Ashley storming in like a controlled explosion. Right behind her stumbled her assistant, her mini-me, struggling to carry an unstable tower of phones, a laptop, a coffee mug, and half a tree's worth of paperwork. Disaster waiting to happen. Is he there yet? Ashley barked, her tone crackling with irritation. The room tensed. Not yet. I mean, he hasn't called back. No TV sightings either, replied Shauna, head of legal, seated stiffly at the far end. Christ, what the fuck was he thinking? Ashley snapped, though no one dared answer. They knew it was rhetorical. She didn't want an answer, just a target. What about Starlight and A-Train? They're on site, assisting with the town evacuation. Sharon, Vought's chief emergency disaster coordinator, replied smoothly. Shockwave, Racer, and Blink are en route. ETA 15, maybe 20 minutes tops. Inferno and Bright Flame are about an hour out. Torture, Fireworks, and Sparks, 2 to 3 hours. Ashley rolled her eyes. Great. A couple of third-string speedsters and a collection of pyro amateurs who'll probably set more fires than they'll stop. At least Inferno and Bright Flame know what they're doing if the town catches fire. Otherwise, they'll be standing there holding their dicks, looking useless. Everyone in the room exchanged glances. Cameron sensed the unease. Ashley caught their looks. What? It's not like I want the damn town to catch fire. It'd still be great PR. Taylor, head of marketing, chimed in cheerfully. Brave heroes save small town. Vought responds with lightning speed. We can spin this 6 ways from Sunday. Ashley gave her a look, unimpressed, and dropped into her chair at the head of the conference table. Sharon interjected before the conversation could pivot. Our analytics show that given the fire's current spread rate and wind patterns, it will likely hit the outskirts within the next 2 hours. That's likely why the evacuation was ordered. 2 hours? Ashley's assistant asked, now freed from her chaos of gear. There are over 60,000 people in that town. Can they evacuate everyone in time? Silence fell again. Sharon hesitated, then answered. Unlikely. But they're probably evacuating in phases, starting with homes closest to the fire line and moving outward. That would buy some time, assuming they can keep the roads clear. Rhonda, the other half of legal, scoffed without looking up. CNN says traffic is gridlocked in all directions. She turned her phone to show a live update. Gridlock. Wall to wall. Ashley exhaled hard. This is going to be a disaster. Everyone looked at her. For us in the town. Obviously. She rubbed her temple. Homelander's already gone rogue, charging in half-cocked with whatever hero lineup he scrounged up. Let's just hope he remembers the cameras. Cameron understood her frustration. Natural disasters were Vought's PR goldmine. Chaotic, emotional, dramatic. But they required coordination, both for operations and optics. Deploying the right soups. Liaising with local authorities. Timing the media. Packaging the heroism. Homelander hasn't coordinated with us, Sharon confirmed, which is standard for him now. But based on the soups he's called in, it seems like his plan is rapid evac support. Speedsters moving critical cases. Pyrokinetics trying to slow the fire's spread. Which, to be fair, she added with a shrug, is the only thing they can do. It's not like you can punch a forest fire. Taylor nodded eagerly. My team's already working on contingency scenarios and drafting content. We'll have press kits ready in 10. Well, good, Ashley muttered, turning back to the massive TV at the far wall. For a few moments, the room went quiet as they watched aerial footage of the growing inferno. The red-orange glow devouring the forest, smoke curling into the sky like nature's wrath given form. A strange sense of collective awe settled over them. It didn't last. Cameron, Ashley's voice cracked through the silence like a whip. Why the fuck are we watching this on MSNBC? He didn't flinch. Our helicopter's in maintenance, and we couldn't secure a backup. Ground crews just arriving now. We're going live with Terry and Laura in 15. That seemed to appease her, for now. Still, Cameron wondered if she was just saving her fury for their next session. Their on-again, off-again relationship had slowed, but when it did spark back up, it was never gentle. One problem, he added, catching everyone's attention again. Local authorities have restricted access. Only emergency vehicles allowed near the town. Our team's likely stuck outside the perimeter. But that's true for everyone, right? Shauna asked. Cameron hesitated. Not necessarily. If media teams were already inside before the lockdown, they're allowed to stay until evacuation hits that zone. And let me guess, that's where CNN is? Rhonda asked flatly. Cameron and Sharon both nodded. Yes, for the most part. Ashley sighed again, loud, tired, frustrated. So it's CNN and MSNBC coverage all the way? Cameron nodded grimly. Unfortunately, yes.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Starlight watched the screens in the command tent as they showed a steady stream of cars moving slowly, but surely all heading out of the city like a viscous, sluggish stream of blood. There wasn't much they could do. Well, there wasn't much she could do. A-Train and the other speedsters, Shockwave, Racer, and Blink, could all technically run people to the nearest hospital over 50 miles away. Technically, because practically if anyone was in that dire danger, they likely wouldn't survive the trip. Still, nonetheless, in a pinch, they could help even if it was a risk, while her power set didn't really help much outside of going into an actual burning building to pull someone out. So with a lack of ability to help outside of lending her face and fame to make a few announcements, there really wasn't much for her to do other than watch the screens and try not to be in anyone's way. She sensed that the fire chief wasn't too thrilled with them being here and was making it obvious he was doing this as a favor to the governor. Annie thought likely that Vought had helped in his election campaign, but then again she knew Vought donated to both sides of the aisle. Her gaze turned to A-Train talking with the other speedsters. Shockwave was A-Train's main rival, as the mid-20s man had been considered as his replacement on the 7. Racer was an older gentleman in his 60s from the Midwest. She remembers hearing about him maybe 15 or 20 years ago when she was a child herself. Blink was new. He didn't look older than 15, and she didn't remember him from Vought's rosters. Rosters she had recently gotten to know quite intimately, as she and A-Train had been in charge of the whole retraining project. A mammoth task had just recently been completed. Starlight took in Blink's appearance and, judged by the costume, or more like lack of costume, since it was nothing more than blue and green spandex shorts and shirt, usually worn by cyclists, topped off with sleek goggles that were currently hanging off his neck, revealing his brown eyes, that he wasn't one of Vought's or any of the other lower agencies. This made her think it was just some boy with powers that decided to play hero, his excitement evident as he was talking with the older speedsters, but also made her question what the hell was Homelander thinking calling him, and how the hell did he even know about the kid. She and A-Train had been shooting a commercial in L.A. when the call from Homelander came asking them to meet here. Of course, she had been surprised, since responses to these types of natural disasters would usually be pre-planned and involve the Emergency Disaster Coordination Team, both for Vought to deploy its resources effectively and to stay on top of the PR game. Where they went, so did the cameras. This, of course, had been rushed, and with no cameras in sight, no coordination of where to go from head office, and a fire chief that wanted nothing more than to throw them out, they were stuck holding the bag, so to speak, waiting for Homelander to come with his grand plan. She hoped he wouldn't be too long, because even though she had not been included in the fire response command structure, she could tell tensions were rising, and she could see from the TV that the fire was spreading faster and faster as new plumes of smoke rose in thick spots that were previously green and clear. The clogged streets didn't give her a confidence the evacuation will be finished in time. Not to mention the fact that most of the roads going out of town were surrounded by forest as well. A-Train was bored. He'd been in a commercial shoot with Starlight when they got the call to rush them both halfway across the state to help out. Only there wasn't much help they could give as the evacuation was in progress, and it was obvious the man in charge didn't like them. His first instinct had been to leave and let the emergency personnel handle this whole thing, but Homelander had told them to wait for him there, and he wasn't about to go against Big Blue. Homelander had certainly changed in the past year, but one thing was still crystal clear: insubordination was not tolerated. Some of the rowdier soups that had mouthed off during the retraining project had already felt the brunt of HL's displeasure. Not a pretty sight. Surprisingly no casualties, but for some it might as well be the end of their careers. Some injuries weren't really recoverable. He'd seen Moore do some nasty stuff to some of them. Hell, he had to apply some of the accidents himself. Outside of his own personal fear, there was also the fact that Vought, and by extension Homelander, were creating the potential cure for his brother's paralysis. An event he wholly blamed himself for. He knew it was likely a long shot no matter what Homelander or the science nerd said, but he still had to have hope. He still needed to make things right for himself, for his brother, and most of all for his nephew and niece. It was how they looked at him now that hurt him the most. He'd been their hero, and now he was less than a hero, less than an uncle, less than even a family member. Their excitement to see him was gone. They wouldn't really talk to him. They treated him like a stranger, like someone to stay away from. It hurt him more than anything else he'd done so far. He couldn't bear how they looked at him. He had to make things right. So no slacking off for him. If Big Blue told him to jump, he'd ask how high, and if he told him to run, he'd only ask where and how fast. And if he told him to drop everything and rush halfway across the state to help, he would. Still with no cameras in sight. A command tent that was obviously annoyed to have to put up with him there. He'd wisely let Starlight deal with that. She was captain after all, and not a lot of coordination of where to go, and what to do there really wasn't much for him to do. He was both annoyed and relieved when the other speedsters showed up. Annoyed that he would now have to share the limelight, and relieved that he had someone else to talk to. Shockwave was his friendly rival in the media, and he knew the younger man had been the first pick as his replacement on the 7. Still, he couldn't hold it against him. The guy was a bro trying to reach the top. Racer he knew from when he was young in his career, and even looked up to the older speedsters at one time. It was always a pleasure to talk to the mild-mannered man, though he was somewhat bland, likely due to his Midwest upbringing and persona. Blink, on the other hand, was new. The kid wasn't with Vought, but that didn't stop him from venturing out into superheroing antics on his own in his native San Diego. A-Train could tell the kid was very excited to be here, especially having received a call from Homelander personally. Why Big Blue called a non-Vought affiliated soup, especially one so young, was beyond him. Definitely not standard procedure. The only thing he could think of was that Homelander was trying to recruit the kid, but even then there were official avenues and procedures to go through. Still, it wasn't up to him to question the big guy. He'd leave that to Starlight. As he listened to Racer and Blink exchange stories, A-Train couldn't help but think back to how things had changed in the team. Working with Starlight had been good for both of them. He'd let her take the lead on the project, at first thinking he might be able to skate by with a few appearances, but soon enough found out that she drove hard and was on his ass constantly. She held him to deadlines and hadn't let him slack off. He'd attended every meeting, every storm braining session, met with every vendor, read all the materials no matter how boring they were, and put in all the late nights that were required. Between the projects, his training sessions with Ryan, and all his other hero responsibilities, he'd had little time to himself and to his family. He sighed inwardly, as he thought it was probably for the best since relations were strained. Still, overall, he felt quite proud of all that he'd achieved in the last year. A part of him thought for sure Homelander will take all the credit for the retraining project, but surprisingly, he'd been very hands-off. Though, maybe he shouldn't have been surprised considering Homelander's space project, Vought responsibilities, and raising Ryan. His thoughts were interrupted by the landing of the big guy himself. Shockwave, Racer, Blink, glad you could make it. Homelander said, addressing the other speedsters first. A chorus responded. Hey, Homelander, Shockwave said with a nod. Glad to be able to help. Racer said calmly. Sir. Homelander, sir. Blink added excitedly. A train. Homelander said, turning to him. What's the situation? Starlight's in the command tent. Guy in charge goes by Nelson Bricks isn't fond of us being here. Barely tolerates us. Our guys at Vought haven't been very helpful either since their teams can't get through. They were caught dash. We won't get much help from them. He interrupted A Train. This was impromptu on my call. It will take them some time to work through the official channels. It's just us here. We'll have to coordinate and work with the emergency personnel ourselves, dash. A Train saw he stopped and looked past him. Starlight was approaching with the fire chief. Starlight. Homelander. She said in acknowledgement. This is Chief Nelson Bricks. Chief. Homelander said, shaking the man's hand. Homelander, the pudgy chief said, a bead of sweat rolling no his temple. We are here to help. A Train was catching me up on the situation, but I would like to hear it from the experts. Homelander said with command in his tone. A Train saw that the fire chief was not too happy about it, but let it go. We got a 10-mile frontal on the length of the town. Fire is spreading quicker and quicker. The drought hasn't been helping. I've got everyone and everything doing all they can slow the spread, but overall I give it about 45 minutes before we get into the danger zone. He said with reluctant confidence. And the evacuation? I saw from above the roads are all packed. Closes neighborhoods to the forest were first to go. But the way the wind is blowing and the rate the fire is moving, it might not be quick enough. Once the houses catch fire, will burn through the neighborhoods quick, and even the roads going out are forested on the sides. He stopped briefly. The smoke is the real killer. Once the fire reaches town, the smoke will infest everything. It will be really bad for anyone trapped on the road. He stopped once more as the sound of his walkie-talkie went off. A Train saw the man say a few words to his colleagues over the walkie-talkie, then turned back to their group. Inferno and Bright Flame should be here soon, 10 or 15 minutes. Homelander said. Their pyrokinetic abilities should be able to help contain any fire that starts within the town as long as they get to it in time. We could also dash. Listen, Chief Nelson interrupted Homelander. I know you guys mean well, but we all know there isn't much for you to do now. This is serious business, not a PR stunt. People's lives and homes are at stake. Let us professionals take care of it. Let us do our jobs and don't get in the way. He paused briefly once more and looked Homelander directly in his eye. The only reason I'm even allowing you here is because I owe one to the governor. Now all I ask is that you let us handle this and stay out of the way. Your presence here is distracting enough, and I know sooner or later your little corporate stooges will want the cameras to be present, creating even more distractions. A Train had to admit the man was ballsy. He even stepped off and didn't let Homelander to respond. Then again, the pudgy fire chief didn't know the real Homelander, only the media version. Wait, Homelander said to the fire chief. The evacuation. What if we can give you more time? We can slow the spread, maybe even contain it. Chief Nelson turned around. Ow! What if we can make a firewall, make a clearing, and remove everything flammable? How big would it have to be? You need a containment line of about 30 feet wide. If we take into consideration the height of some of the trees, maybe a 50-foot clearing overall. But you'd have to do it over 10 miles in under 30 minutes. That's impossible. Leave that to us. Homelander said confidently. We'll take care of it. The chief just looked at him for a tense moment and gave in. Fine. As close as you can to the fire line is better. Got it. A Train saw Homelander turn back to them. Starlight, you Racer and Blink stay here and wait for Inferno and Bright Flame to arrive. Coordinate with the chief on containing any fires if needed and help with the evacuation in any way possible. Then he turned to Blink. Blink, can I trust that you'll follow Starlight and the emergency personnel's lead? Yes, sir, of course. The 15-year-old said excitedly. Excellent. We'll speak once all this is over. A Train, you and Shockwave are with me, he said and sped off, giving them no chance to protest. Had they not been soups, the heat and smoke would have been overwhelming. They soon stopped and were now maybe a few hundred yards away from the fire line. Not that it was a straight line. A Train saw that Homelander had stopped and looked all around in silence, with only the crackling of fire being heard. A Train would bet that Big Blue was using his supervision. if he was a betting man, which he was. Homelander, what's the plan here, man? Shockwave asked. It took a moment for Homelander to respond. We'll start making a clearing from here, heading north along the fire line. I want every tree in a 50-foot radius to be taken down and pushed back. He pointed towards the town. We'll make sure to starve the fire once it reaches here. What? How? There's no way we can do that. Shockwave asked, shocked. A-Train saw Homelander look at Shockwave like he was a child. Shockwave, you're super strong, super fast, and incredibly durable. Push, punch, rip them out, or cut them. Homelander said as he lifted his left arm and started oscillating it back and forth in short movements, going faster until it was a blur. The vibrating arm cut right through a tree like a hot knife through butter. A-Train was amazed. Wow, Shockwave was too. I don't think I can do that. The younger speedster said as he lifted his hand and tried to vibrate it the same way with mixed sputtering results. Yes, you can, Homelander said forcefully. And if you can't, you will learn now, he said as he closed the distance between them and grabbed Shockwave by the shoulder. You heard the fire chief. People's houses and lives are at stake, and you are a hero. Not because of your powers, but because in a time of crisis you step up to the plate. You understand? Homelander continued. His tone was dangerously low in contrast to the positive pep talk. A-Train could also tell that Homelander was squeezing Shockwave's shoulder just a bit too hard for comfort. We'll handle it, he said suddenly out of guilty, interrupting Big Blue's intimidating pep talk. What about you? What are you going to do? Me? Homelander turned to him. I'm going to make a trench. It will be the line you two will follow to clear the area. Now A-Train was confused. How are you going to do that? He asked before he could stop himself. To his surprise, Homelander smiled at them and unclasped his cape, throwing far away to the side. By digging, of course. Before he could continue his line of questioning, A-Train saw Homelander hover above their heads in the air. To both of their surprise, they saw Homelander switch position, almost horizontal, body slightly angled, so that it's not completely flat. Next, Homelander moved his hands above his head, looking like a diver, but with hands clamped together. He stood in that position for half a moment, then he started spinning. Within a moment, he was spinning so fast he was blurry, and within a blink of an eye, A-Train saw Homelander plunge into the ground. The sound was deafening. What the fuck? He heard the younger speedster's voice his exact thoughts. Dirt, rock, trees, everything was pulverized or thrown out of place with only a shallow trench left in place. The ground might as well have been putty against the force that was Homelander. He'd never seen anything like it. He didn't even know Homelander could do that. His thoughts were broken by the younger speedster. What do we do? A-Train looked at him and focused. Like Big Blue said, we clear out everything. He's the bulldozer, we're the clearing team. Scene break. Minnie Ashley opened her mouth to make a sound, but nothing came out. She remained slack-jawed. It appears that massive trail of destruction is Homelander along with Shockwave and A-Train. She heard the TV say over the practically yelling voices of the executives. He could do that. How come we DNT know this? My God, it's like a drill through Jello. That wasn't in his files. How come we didn't know he could do that? I didn't know either. She barely registered the voice of her boss. Do you think he can do that through solid rock? He can crush steel like paper, so, probably. How come we never used Man of Steel? She watched with morbid fascination as the tail of destruction split the forest, pulverizing everything in its path at astonishing speed, as if someone was drawing a black line on a canvas of green, the helicopter moving fast to keep everything in frame. Two blurs trailing behind, cutting trees, and chucking debris at also impressive speeds. Copyright, there's another soup. The exec's conversation continued all around her. If he could do that to the new bypass line being built. If only we were so lucky we could have it built this century. Tired of sitting in traffic? She heard a sarcastic voice, likely Rhonda's. We get who we vote for. Minnie Ashley shook her head and tried to clue in back to the conversation. Everyone was cracking jokes, but she could tell Ashley was thinking deeply and plotting. Mallory felt bored indifference as she watched the analysts go over the video of Homelander turning the forest floor in a Play-Doh, up and down the 10-mile length 4 times in under 45 minutes. She fought the urge to slouch, and yet only out of sheer professionalism, as everyone present, every agent, special agent, lieutenant, analyst, special analyst, and all other fancy useless titles were sitting straight as rods absorbing or pretending to absorb every single word. If we consider the additional trenches on the sides to contain the fire, then it becomes much. Mallory also felt old as she looked around the conference table at the faces that made up this little task force. Oh, the higher-ups were around her age, sure, but everyone else was 20 years younger at least. Not a bad thing necessarily. New blood was always good, hopefully new ideas and new perspectives. The sheer destruction capabilities in such a short amount of time means we have to update it. She was supposed to be retired, but it seemed there was always something that pulled her back in. The government had always kept a close eye on Homelander. Well, at least when the extent his capabilities started to sink into the brains of the national security types. She knew there were contingencies in place, plans to secure VIPs, the president, cabinet, important senators, and other types in case Big Blue finally snapped. She didn't know what they were specifically, but she knew there was nothing like a politician trying to save their ass. Yes, enough about updating the damn Matrix response level. Special Director Bart Brown interrupted the presentation. Special Director, because the only thing he was directing was this task force, which officially didn't exist, and technically no one on it was his direct employee. Technically. Practically, he could make or break most of these people's careers. One word from him, and off to Antarctica you go for birdwatching. What I want to know is how come we didn't know about this? I thought we knew all his capabilities. He asked the room at large. Well, sir, the analyst. Or was it special analyst, or was it senior analyst? She couldn't remember and frankly didn't care. Technically, he's not using any new powers, he's just applying his current powers differently. It's just an application of his flight powers and incredible durability, though we suspect his super and laser vision as well. And how come he's never done this before? We've had other terrible forest fires. We certainly could have used his help. One of the NSA reps asked. We don't know for sure, the analyst said, shrugging his shoulders. In the interviews, he puts blame on the previous Vought leadership, not letting him, though we suspect it's more likely tied to the changes he underwent in the past year. Which brings us to the other part of this little meeting. Brown said, the psychological and behavioral changes we've observed. Johnson? Mallory almost snorted. Thank you, sir. Another middle-aged man, Buzz Cut Man, said, standing while the previous analyst took a seat. There were at least 4 Johnsons in this room alone. Why the agencies attracted people with that name was beyond her. In the past year, we've observed an increased focus of obsessive behavior, focused on war priorities, both in the hero and corporate sides. Were they all just trying to prove something to make up for something lacking? Or did they feel that because of their names they could fuck the common folk by being spooks? Surprising competence in running Vought operations, coupled with, metaphorically of course, not that the CIA hadn't fucked America before. Christ, the things she did for this agency, all in the name of national security. What a load of crap, since she would never wash out, while showing restraint and exhibiting less narcissistic traits. She was practically responsible for the crack epidemic in black communities. Well, not only her alone, the agency at large, but she had a deadly hand in it. They didn't even let them traffic cocaine, but crack instead. All to make more money to fight the commies. What a joke, she thought. They sold their souls for something as pitiful as money. The Soviets, who were paper bears to begin with. While more stable and less likely to have an episode, we believe that this change in personality coupled with new application of his powers. And that was only the crap she was directly involved. The other Black Ops nonsense she had at least indirectly touched would fill a whole graveyard of skeletons, let alone a closet. Which is why we continue to recommend a hands-off approach of only observation and cleanup for both Homelander and Dash. This time Mallory actually snorted out loud. His son. The analyst finished looking at her. The whole room was looking at her. Mallory got something to add? Brown asked with a scowl on his mouth. Oh, nothing, she started with derision. She was old, and she wasn't even supposed to be here anymore. There was nothing Brown could do to her outside of killing her. Just that we had the perfect opportunity to take out Homelander over a year ago, she said, looking around the room. But in true government fashion, the operation was botched from the beginning. She immediately saw some of the gathered men puff up in indignation. That was an unsanctioned, unauthorized operation by rogue agents. Justice and disciplinary action were swiftly applied upon their capture. One of the other Johnsons said, "Oh, cut the bullshit. You had the chance of a lifetime and botched it." She was tired of the games, and she was tired of the amateur bullshit. You all knew what Noir was capable of, and you went in half-cocked and underarmed you should have dashed. What the hell were we supposed to do? The other man exploded, his face red. Bring down the whole fucking building. Hundreds, if not thousands more could have died. She felt bitter inside. He was right, of course, but she couldn't stop feeling the bitterness. Leave it to the agency to grow fucking heart now. Where was this when pregnant women were dying of crack, or when armed guerrilla fighters raped their way through in installing banana dictators? You do what it takes. You finish the fucking dash. Bang! The loud noise startled them all. Enough! Brown yelled. If you don't have anything constructive to say, then keep quiet. Both of you. Mallory saw the other man relent and lean back in his chair while she rolled her eyes. Now if we're done with the psych profile, we move on to the next topic. Brown set his gaze intense. The presenter sat down. Mallory, please, your report. She hated this. Not because she was technically spying on Ryan, but because of what she had to report. Ryan is doing well, and as far as I can tell, he is developing as a normal child for that age would. Homelander has, and she hated to admit this, proven to be a competent parent. His approach to Ryan has been well thought out and in line with what would be considered a normal working parent. If anything, I would say he is being somewhat strict. She paused and took a breath. He has restricted access to social media and the internet in general. It seems Homelander wants him to have as little screen time as possible. His days are filled mostly with tutors trying to bring his academic level. Like every kid, he both hates it and likes it. He'd rather play video games than do homework. She paused once again. Is he adjusting well to the new situation? Are they getting along well? Is he happy? One of the old-timers asked. She knew what he was getting at. Can Ryan be used against Homelander, or is he turning into him? He's adjusting as well as any kid could in this situation. His complaints about his father are, she really hated to say this, trivial in nature, typical of what any kid would have. Their overall relationship, I would say, is pretty good. I doubt any plans to turn him away from his would work at this point. And his powers? This time Brown asked. He practices them regularly with Homelander. I'm sure you've all seen him break the sound barrier in under 12 seconds. A chorus of nods was the response from the room. He loves flying and likes to practice it the most. Homelander has put him through various training programs at VOT to help him control his increasing strength. He's undergoing combat training with Noir and speed training with A-Train. He even spent a few sessions with Silver Kincaid. He says Homelander makes him regularly do target practice with his laser vision. She couldn't help but smile at her next sentence. Says he's better since his father is missing an eye. Hopefully that will be enough to keep the body count down. Brown said. The rest of the room agreed with him, and she did as well. Ryan was growing fast, and so were his powers. She could barely compare him to how he was when they were together. Back then, he could scarcely use his powers both, because he was afraid of what he could do and because he didn't know how to do it. Though it was also likely because he was now a year older and thus more grown up and stronger overall. We will have to adjust our contingencies to take him into consideration as well. Mallory didn't like the sound of that, but knew it was necessary. While she couldn't see Ryan turning into his father, it didn't mean that the boy wouldn't help his father, whether it would be out of love or manipulation. The possibility is still there. Anything else to report? Brown asked pointedly. No, she said coldly. Nothing else. That is all she will give them for now. Not that there was much else to report outside of Ryan's wish to attend school. But fuck them, she thought, let the others earn their paycheck. Good. And the last thing on the agenda. Brown said, moving things along. We have an update on Compound V research facilities across the globe. Becker, take it away. Ever since the idiot Homelander spread V around the globe to terrorist cells, it was only a matter before countries got their hands on them and started their own research facilities. As discussed in our last presentation, out of the nations of concern, China and Iran have managed to synthesize stable formulas and are approaching human trials if they haven't already started. What an imbecilic move that was, she thought. The idiot might have doomed them all. God only knows what commies or the religious nutjobs will do with V. Ash fell on her skin. Dark clouds, illuminated by the red hue of the wildfire, blanketed the sky. Light covered her face, and a mingling of voices carried by shadowy figures moving all around filled her ears. She blinked. It felt like an eternity. Two men were on the floor, breathing heavily. Their colorful costumes were torn, burnt, and melted, their skin glistening with sweat and dirt. Another blink, another eternity. She felt his presence. He descended from the sky, hair wild and dirty. His costume gone, his cape wrapped around his waist. An avalanche of heat engulfed her as he landed. He leaned in. His scars seemed to ripple in the red-tinted light. Her heart skipped, and she blinked. Less than an eternity. She saw metal walls and felt pressure in her stomach. She was scared. A canine smile and sharp blue eyes met hers. Not one but two. They were cold and furious. His face was unmarked, perfect. She blinked again, faster than an eternity. Two eyes turned into one, boring down on her. She felt heat. He just landed. Her heart skipped again. She blinked, faster this time. A mocking smile met her. It was cold. She blinked. The image changed again. She felt heat. He was landing again, his gaze only on her and hers on him. She blinked. Blood drip drops, splashing, blocking her view as is falling on a screen in front of her. Alex's face flashes in front of her, and then the disembodied parts. Ah! She wakes with a scream. Her chest is heaving heavily, and she's covered in sweat. She only hopes she hadn't messed the power to the tower this time. Every time she's had this dream, her powers had activated and something had blown up somewhere. She regained her breath and steadied herself. A dream? No, this was a nightmare. How can she possibly think of him, of all people, like that? The heat was more than just from the fire. Dina watched with curious fascination through the giant glass walls how Homelander was aggressively flailing around a plethora of diapers, closing and opening them while gesticulating wildly towards the crowd in what could only be anger and frustration. She wasn't the only one watching, of course. Everyone was doing their best to be inconspicuous from their desks, but she was the only one actually standing outside the giant see-through glass of the boardroom walls. That was only, of course, because she was early for the Seven's weekly stand-up meeting. Normally, they would use the 7 meeting room on the top floor. However, Homelander had made it an unofficial policy to once in a while schedule their meetings in other floors of the company, so the employees can see us, his reasoning was. Smart move, she thought. It's always good to connect with the rest of the company, the rest of the people. Ever since she'd joined the 7, she'd seen a lot of smart moves not only from Vought, but specifically Homelander. He wasn't quite the man she'd seen in Maeve's memories, though he could simply be doing a better job at hiding it. Or, as Maeve said, and something was wrong with him. Today's meeting wasn't one of those smart moves. The video conferencing system had crapped out in the 7 meeting room, so they had to reschedule to a different room. Whatever was happening was bad. Well, bad enough that Homelander was actually throwing a fit in public. Hey, Silver Kincaid. She was broken out her thoughts. Any idea what is going on in there? Golden Boy asked. No clue, she said, looking at the golden-costumed young man. He was Maeve's maternity leave replacement, fresh out of Godalkin. The newbie settled into a crossed-arm position next to her. She had to admit, he looked good. No, not just good, he looked golden. Top of the class at GoDU, graduating 1 year early with honors. Dean's List, the works, and with charm and looks that made him a teenage girl's wet dream. It was another smart move by Homelander to snatch him up early. It's 10:07, he said slowly. Should we go in there, or is our meeting canceled? Before she could answer, she saw Homelander turn to them and motion for them to join the room. Guess their meeting is over, she said, and opened a door, but Homelander wasn't actually done talking. Well, don't care how they either change their production or we change supplier. I don't care how much it costs. She saw him say to Josh, the head of product for Queen. Maeve, as a portion of the room, shuffled out. There are contracts we'd be breaking here. We can't simply change it on a dime, And even if we can make a change this fast, there's already hundreds of thousands, if not millions of units shipped. We'd have to dash. No, no, no. Homelander answered frustrated. I don't want to hear this. We've already had this meeting with the ELT and the board. Everything related to the 7 has to be of superior quality, no generic crap. And especially, and I cannot stress this enough, everything related to Queen Maeve's baby brand, things that we are charging an atrocious amount of premium on. He paused briefly. These are good quality diapers. Josh said defensively. No, they aren't. You see how flimsy they are, size 4 and up. It's a completely different fucking diaper. Homelander continued. She and Golden Boy took a seat at the far end of the table. I can see this, and so can the fucking customers. You weren't the one that was just assaulted by a Korean grandmother in a grocery store and berated for 10 minutes on changing the damn diapers. Homelander said, and threw the diapers in his hand on the table. Josh looked repentant, ashamed, and sighed. We still have to take it to Ashley. This could cost us quite a bit, depending on how we handle it. You let me worry about Ashley. I'll get in touch with her after she lands. Ashley was gone to deal with some issues with the park in Hong Kong. Dina remembered. Josh nodded and left the room, leaving them with Homelander. Where the hell is everyone? It's almost 10 past. He said as he turned to them. I've got 5 launches to do today, and first one starts at 11. Before she could answer, the door opened with deep rushing and phone in hand. H.L. Did you see the video? The Deep went straight to Homelander. What video? Golden Boy asked. Shit's out already? Homelander asked, leaning in over the Deep. Both her and Golden Boy joined him. They saw a portrait phone video of an old Asian lady yelling at Homelander in a grocery store while holding 2 small boxes of diapers. The words were explicit and embarrassing. Wow, Dina couldn't help but say. That old lady is really letting you have it. Fuck. And all I wanted was to buy some damn Gatorade. They all looked at him. I like the taste, he said, rolling his eye. So the previous meeting was about this video? Golden Boy asked. Yes, it was. Now never mind that. Where the hell is everyone else? Are they online? Dina saw him go start the TV screens. I thought everyone replied to be in a dash. The door burst open again. Did you guys see the video? A train burst in. Ajuma versus Homelander? The Deep asked. Your old feisty Korean lady. That is going mad viral. A train said. Not a good look, he said with an amused smile. Dina could see Homelander was getting annoyed now, differently than his previous frustration. Yes, they saw the stupid video. Now why are you late? He asked, annoyed. No, how are you late? You're the fastest man alive. A train looked sheepishly and said, I may have stopped for an extra bagel in the cafeteria. Oh, for fuck's sake. Where the hell are Starlight and Noir? It's almost 1/4 after dash. Homelander was interrupted by his cell phone ringing. It's Ashley, he said, and took the call. Hey, Ashley. Yes, I saw the stupid fucking video. Dina saw him pause and heard rapid fire talking from the other side. So you just talk with product and legal? No, I don't care. We talked about this before. He continued while pacing. Dina could tell Ashley was trying not to lose her shit on the other side of that line. I don't give a shit how much it's going to cost, well, he said, and turned back to them, holding the phone down to his chest. I've got to go, he simply said, and headed to the door. Where? I'm going to pull them out of whatever meetings they are in now, so they can tell me that to my face, he said, doing everything he could not to fully shout in the phone. Dina could see Starlight just turning the corner coffee cup and laptop in hand. Homelander bumped in her, making her spill a bit of the coffee on herself. Captain, get your fucking team in order, Dina heard Homelander say, without skipping a beat or stopping at all. No, Ashley, I don't care, Dina heard him say as he rounded the corner. What the hell was that? Starlight asked, confused, as she entered the room. What's up his ass, and where is he going? She made a move to get the napkins in the middle of the table. Before any of them could answer, the conference room door burst open once more. Noir silently strode, in one hand holding his phone and the other pointing at it. Starlight looked even more confused. You have to watch this video, the Deep said.